G'day guys, welcome back. Today we're doing 2021 DMAX again. As you all know, this is Phil's DMAX. We have the Black Hawk upper control arms going on today to help him with his wheel alignments after we put the lift in. Well, actually the lift's already in, but we'll be bumping it up because currently it's sort of sagged back down to factory again. The car's jacked up at the moment, so you're at full droop, but we're having multiple problems. Lighting's not the best right now, but I will sort that out. On max travel upwards, we're hitting this reservoir and it's pushing the bracket up into the wheel well. So Dobinson's have released their new located bracket, which puts it down by this front strut here. So we'll be doing that, replacing these upper control arms with the Black Hawk ones, which look a lot more sturdy and heavy duty, and we'll be adjusting the suspension up. I'm probably going to raise it about 30 to 40 mil with high low that it's currently sitting, but I have to pull that out to rotate the shock around so the hose is facing a different direction for where we're going to put the bracket. So can't see too well there, but that's the new bracket for the remote res. This is your tool for adjusting the coilovers, and this is the MUNJI DIFF drop. So it's like a pretty good bit of kit. Alright, so to start off with, I'm just going to pull both sets of wheels and the underbody bash plates, just so that when I am working I don't have any interactions with stuff getting in the way and I've got clear access to everything. So I'm just going to skip straight through to no bash plates, no tyres. Guys, so I'm going to be removing the upper control arms first and the shocks, and then once they're all out of the way, I'll move on to the diff drop just because there's more room in there then. But for now, to get your upper control arms off, you split pin here, and then it's the 22 mil. So you bust that off, just wind it until your thread's covered, because you'll probably need to knock this or shock load it while levering this up to pop it out of the ball joint. And then these are your two upper control arm bolts, 19 mil on the inside and outside, 17 mil for your sway bar link, and 12 mil for your brake lines and ABS sensor bracket. So I remove these just so that when I swing this out of the way to get more room, I'm not worried about damaging any brake lines or anything like that. And I'll also set a strap up over here, so once this is free, I just took it up over there and it won't fall out, because if you let this fall forward, basically what happens then is you have the chance of your CV popping out of the knuckle, which can be annoying to get back in. So pop it out, don't let it fall forward, tuck it over in the side and forget about it. Just one more thing, looking at how tight this is going to get when the upper control arm comes up, I might just unbolt the wheel speed sensor entirely from the hub assembly. Needs to be unbolted from the upper control arm anyway, but I feel like if I let this up, it's going to get real tight. Alright, so obviously that's going to go on the new upper control arm, so I'll just keep that to one side for now. Oh shit. So you want to hold continuous pressure and then you want to hit this side. so that's held out of the way. CV is also not going to pop out there, which is good. Right, so now we're going to focus on the strut assembly. But what I might do real quick, because it always makes life easy, if I might just go over to the other side and undo the sway bar, just so I've got some movement in this. And then when I pull that bottom link out, I should be able to adjust this in a way where I can lever that out further. Possibly not required, guys. There might be a little trick to getting the sway bar out of the way, but I don't mess around. I'll give it one decent try, and if I don't get it out, I just unbolt whatever's holding me up. Especially if it's only 3 bolts. So currently the struts come out like this, and the hose is facing inwards, but I think to run this new bracket I've got to have it so that it's rotated this way, facing outwards. Just going to go over and do the same thing now to the other side, and then I'll start attacking this diff drop. It's this other side stripped, as well as I've undone the bottom diff mount. One thing to say is it's a lot easier to obviously do these upper control arm bolts with the strut out. So this side I pulled the strut first and then done the upper control arms. You'll see this hanging down because I'm relocating the remote res inside of here. I just got to figure it out because there's no instructions, just a couple of brackets. So I'm assuming it's going to be these 2 holes here, but yeah. So I'm just going to nip around the other side now and take my diff drop bracket with me. We'll undo the bottom mount on the other side. It should drop the diff down, but it's still going to be attached at the rear, so it's not a big drama. Bolt these in on both sides, and then we'll look at mounting the front back up. Once the front's done back up, we'll start on the rear. Alright, so these MUNJI diff drop brackets, basically this Allen key hole here, this bolt, will go into where this originally bolted into the chassis, and then the diff mount itself from the diff to the chassis will then hit this threaded hole here. So all I'm going to do is obviously unbolt this side, drop it down, put some Loctite on this, and I'm probably going to reuse the actual original diff bolts because they are a higher grade bolt than the ones that MUNJI provided. So just going to put the jack under that. I don't expect this diff to go far because it's obviously still got the rear mount, but I also don't want to risk it at the same time. So Nice. Alright, so your new bracket's going to go in this way, and what you're going to see is this locator hole here is going to go up into this hole back here. Also, if you've got any rust or dirt around, make sure it's all clean so the area's going to actually grab better. If you've got any sand sitting there, it can vibrate loose later on. Also put a bit of Loctite on my bolt. So you just go up like that and you'll feel the rear dowel lock into place. So that's that one in place. We'll just go over and do the other one. What I like about this design is when you actually put your diff bolt in, it's going to stop this from coming undone regardless, because it physically won't be able to push its way out. Not that mine's going to come undone because I've Loctited it and done them up tight, but it's just a good little safety feature. Alright, so now that we've got both relocating brackets bolted to the chassis, we're going to have dramas now of the diff being tilted forward. So I'm now going to start attacking the rear. So the rear mount will actually bring the diff back down like this. It's slightly lower, I'm pretty sure. To get that, all I'm going to do is hit. I'm just going to unbolt the big nut from below, which will probably be a 22 like the rest of them. And then these look like 14, so I'll pull these two off here, those two off there, drop this whole cross member down, and then I'll attack this diff mount just up top here. Once again, I've Loctited. If it's driveline stuff and all that, like anything related to driveline, I don't want to run the risk of it coming loose. So it's a bit annoying to undo, but at least it doesn't undo when you're driving down the road. Alright, so now we got the rear diff mount set up and ready to go. Just going to go around before we put the cross member in and put the front mounts in. Made a liar of myself, same grade bolt. So all I'm going to do is run the new bolt, with the old washer and rubber on. Oh, you dog. Come on. Alright, that's one done. And I would have just compressed about 10 minutes of struggling into 30 seconds for you. So I'm not going to do that up tight, I'm just going to leave it as is for now until I get the other side started. Alright, I'm going to get this diff. Alright, so we're just going to be fitting the drive shaft spacer, recess lip towards the drive shaft, external lip towards the diff. And then basically your Allen keys just go from the inside out. G'day guys, basically I ran out of memory halfway through installing that drive shaft, so it is all done, or the drive shaft spacer, so that is all done, and I just carried on with the right hand side. I got shit everywhere at the moment, ignore that. Yeah, so this is the right side currently. Obviously the only thing missing is the sway bars, or sway bar, because of the fact that I need to leave that off until I've done the other side. But you got the new upper control arm in, the Black Hawk upper control arm. It does stipulate to grease before driving because there's none in there, and I've relocated the remote res up inside of this wheel arch with the new brackets. So basically I actually bumped the threads up on, or bumped the adjustment on this strut tower up by like 12mm. This did sag a fair bit, I think just because of all the weight that's been getting added onto this car now. The front was almost back to factory height, so same thing with this. I'll show you guys how I crack this adjuster off, and I'll wind the threads up another 12mm to match the right hand side, and then you just can see me slap it all back together and relocate this reservoir. So the owner Phil did request a bit of a side by side to find out what's actually different between them. Apart from obviously this looks a lot more heavy duty and braced. Alright guys, so this is side by side, so obviously the new Black Hawk and the factory ones. There's not a lot of difference in the ball joint. I mean, I'm not super expert on these, but basically this is 230 from the center of the bush to your center of your ball joint, and I think it was 230, and we'll go from center of the bush to 230 from the rear, center of bush to ball joint, and 290 from the front, center of bush to center of the ball joint. And then on the new ones, we're looking at 285 from center of the front to the center of the ball joint, and 210 from center of the rear bush to the center of the ball joint. So looks like they've brought the knuckle back like 20mm. I'm assuming that's how you got to do it to get yourself better wheel alignment. And as I said, I'd never really understood fully what they do. I just replace them so that people get good wheel alignments. Right, so now we're going to start doing the suspension adjustment. So of Dobinson's, you got these two tools. So this is your adjustment nut, and this is your locking nut. So basically what we've got to do is crack the locking nut off first. So I just get these two together like so. Right, so we wind that off a couple of turns. Now if you're doing this on the car, it's bloody hard, but you can do the same thing, crack this nut off. You get your tool in, and then you generally have to put like a piece of pipe on it, but you don't do it when all the weight's on the car. You jack the car up so it's at full droop, and then that lets as much pressure off the coil as possible, and then you can generally use a bar to wind the threads up. It's just important that you clean all the threads as best as you can. So see how there's sand all wedged inside of this? So you're just gonna make sure that down there and all that is pretty clean. Otherwise you'll bind the threads up and you'll never get it undone. So I got this guy off of eBay for 150 bucks about 6 years ago. And I can tell you now, it's the best thing I ever bought. You feel a lot safer using this than you do those shit ones that you can buy from super cheap. Cool. So all I've done is I've compressed the coil so that I can see a gap between the... Stay there, you dog. I've compressed the coil so I can see a gap between the base plate and the coil. And then basically I've marked on the base plate as well as the adjuster and the thread. Whew, out of breath. Its starting position. And now I'm just going to go the other side. I went 7 turns, so just going to do the same on this side. Alright, so that's 7 rotations, which is the same as the other side. Which worked out to be 12mm. It's annoying how I've chipped the paint off, but there's just that much mud wedged inside of here that I just had to free it up somehow, so here's what it is, unfortunately. Sorry, Phil. So to nip these up, I just use the same technique again. I get the C spanner facing out like this, hook the other end in. I just get my multi grips, squeeze them tight. Alright, so we're going to start first up with obviously the upper control arms. It's a lot easier getting these in with the strut out, so let's do them straight away. I won't do these bolts up tight until I've got the suspension weight taken up so that the bush is actually sitting naturally square. Otherwise, if we tighten them up now, you put more pressure on the bush as it twists up. So it goes for any suspension bushes. If you want to, when you're doing your suspension, you want your car to be sat at its natural height, so pretty much the weight of the car on the suspension. Then you tighten everything up and that locks the bushes up where it will naturally be sitting. Otherwise, if you tighten it up now and the control arm goes up, then you're twisting the bush and then it still has further upwards travel as well. So you put more pressure on the bush each time you do stuff up. That's why when they say when you're installing new lift kits to tighten everything on the floor. Nice. Right, so what I like to do with the suspension bolts, obviously I was saying before you had the weight of the car on there, so I just use a jack and I jack it until the car wants to lift off the stands. And then I know I've got the weight of the car there. Alright, so with greasing the ball joint, you don't need to do it until you see grease squirt out, but you do need to see the boot fill up. So you'll watch you can see the boot expanding as you're filling it. So by the feel of them, there was no grease in these at all, so. See how you can see the boot rolling out now. I'll leave it like that. That was like 12 pumps, so there's no need to get it to pop out of the top. Just makes a mess, and I can physically see it around the whole boot. So right, I've already removed them, but you also have a 10mm screw there and a 10mm nut coming up through this cutout here. So you just push that down, lever that out. And you have a plastic clip up in this corner here. There we are. Alright, so the remote res goes up in here. So it flips around like that. So we mount it up behind here in this recess. Same thing again, I'm going to have to put a little kink in this pipe just to get it away, so I don't want any rubbing. This. Alright, so the bottom bolt's in. The top bolt actually holds all the plastic guard and everything in place at the same time, so you've got to put all this on first. Alright, so what we've got left to do now is fit the sway bar up and then find out where I need to clamp this hose. Alright. Just slap these bash plates on and the wheels and drop her on the floor and see how she looks. Alright. So obviously when you first lower a vehicle off the stands, it's not going to give you a true reading of how high it is, so you got to reverse it out, drive it back in just to ensure that let all the suspension settle on the floor, because at the moment the tyres will be sat on its edge like this, and then as you reverse it back and forward they'll square up. So obviously this will need a wheel alignment done. I'm just going to torque these wheels before I do anything, and then I'll let you know how it's settled. Alright, so she's not a bloody Lift King monster, but that's the finished result. So basically it's only gone up, well originally what you haven't seen off camera is I've adjusted these coils 3 times. Trying to get them set pretty level. So I'm at, from the center of the hub to the bottom of the wheel arch now is 570mm, and it sits almost pretty symmetrical with the tray. But I've just got Phil coming round now, and he's just going to run his eye over it, make sure he's happy, otherwise I'm going to try and tweak him again. But hopefully this has helped some of you. This actually took me a lot longer than I thought. It took me 2 hours, or just over 2 hours, to put the diff drop in. It says allow half an hour, so yeah. And I've actually spent a long time on the suspension, but that's because I've been trying to adjust it to get it right for Phil. So I was predicting 6 hours all up for like the whole shebang, and I've spent like almost double that now on it. I'm sure you guys can do it a lot quicker, especially if you got a hoist. If you got a hoist, it's a lot easier. On the floor is not the best. You can always tell when my jobs are turned to shit, because you'll see my tools just scattered everywhere in the little areas that I'm working in. But the final result turned out pretty good. So I'll catch you on the next one, guys.